Right, Deputy President David Mabuza, in his capacity as the chairperson of the Inter-Ministerial Committee on Land Reform and Agriculture, is addressing the Communal Land Administration and Tenure Summit. Let's take you live to that.
Khoshi Siatlol, members of the National House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders present here today, premiers, MECs of Cocta and Agriculture, chairpersons of houses of traditional and Khoisan leaders, the president of Contralesa and the entire executive of Contralesa, mayors from all districts and metros, the leadership of the South African Local Government Association, representatives of the Presidential Advisory Panel on Land Reform, representatives of the academia, non-governmental organizations, our legal experts, business, and civil society, representatives of traditional and Khoisan communities, directors generals, our senior officials who are present here, and all delegates, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I think we need to convey our sincere apology as government that we had to start this summit 2.5 hours late. We apologize for the inconvenience caused. I'm sure we'll attend to all the glitches. Tomorrow our program should run very smooth. Our apology. Program Director, our gathering here today and tomorrow marks an important milestone in our efforts of resolving the national question of land and the quest to affirm our heritage founded on our rights to land as an important pillar for the realization of development. Land, heritage, and national identity are inseparable as they define how we perceive ourselves as a people, as a sovereign nation, with uncontested rights to self-determination. The national land spaces of our birth define ecosystems of life, our collective consciousness, our nationhood, and the possibilities of future progress that any nation, including our nation, desires for its own people. The nation lives because it has land. The native people of the land live because they define themselves in relation to the land they inhabit for their development and progress. Even the powerless and the poor are born into land that must define their identities and provide sustenance to them and their generations to come. Therefore, it goes without saying that the lives of communities are intertwined with land and its natural endowments that must benefit them. Individually and collectively, as a community of people, must have access to land for their development and progress. As we gather today in this summit, our reflection must not escape the inevitable constitutional injunctions that land administration and tenure systems that we opt for must primarily put the interests of the people and communities first. In traditional communities, ownership and access to land for productive use will forever remain critical levers for addressing the legacies of underdevelopment and social deprivation. We have no doubt that traditional leaders gathered here today understand and appreciate the value of land in helping to advance the empowerment of the people in communal areas. For the people in communal areas have the same right to development as any other South African elsewhere in urban settings. Therefore, any form of land deprivation strips ordinary people of their national identity, their heritage, and ability to develop and progress as a people. As a nation, our struggle for liberation was primarily centered around the injustices of land dispossession and deprivation, and the indignity of forced removals of people from the land of their birth. In the broader struggles for liberation and democratization, traditional leaders played a critical role in the fight against land dispossession by the colonial and the apartheid system. Any narration of the history of land dispossession, wars in Africa and South Africa will be incomplete if it does not include the heroic struggles that were led by traditional leaders and Khoisan leaders. As we gather here, many years later, the land question remains firmly on the agenda of government's transformation program, and this has continued to feature strongly in our engagement with the institution of traditional and Khoisan leaders. As a nation, we are now at a point of no return. We have geared ourselves to confront the land question head-on by utilizing all constitutionally compliant instruments and mechanisms of transformation. We are at the crossroads, one possibly leading to anarchy and destruction, and the other leading to a carefully guided land reform program that ensures strategic land acquisition, land distribution, land restitution to its rightful owners and those who need it for development. While we accept that land reform is a complex matter and very emotive one, as a responsible government, we affirm our determination to choose the path of land reform rooted within the provisions of our Constitution. More importantly, land tenure reform remains a critical component of our land reform. Not only is accelerated land reform a necessary condition for the restorative justice, but it is a precondition for forging unity and social cohesion across the nation. government is committed to ensuring that our land reform program delivers on the aspirations of our ordinary people. While the scope of our summit has been framed to cover land administration and tenure in communal areas, as government, we are aware of the urgent need to effect land transformation that goes beyond the 13% of communal land under the jurisdiction of traditional leaders. We will proceed with available policy and legislative instruments that will assist in the acquisition of more land for redistribution and expansion of communal land, especially in areas where land has been expropriated in the public interest. We will ensure that land issues not covered in the deliberation of this narrowly focused summit are firmly placed on the agenda of the Inter-Ministerial Task Team that is seized with addressing all issues that were raised by traditional and coalition leaders. We are encouraged that on the occasion of the indigenous and traditional Indaba in 2018, traditional leaders reaffirmed their commitment to, among others, the implementation of land tenure reforms and land redistribution within a developmental approach. The Indaba also agreed that the summit will be convened to interrogate the transfer of land and its transformation. Within the spirit of that resolve, this summit will focus on how we collectively shape the nature of land administration and tenure in communal areas, including governance, institutional coordination mechanisms, and the role of traditional leaders. The proposals discussed and agreed in this summit will help shape and redefine into clear policy instruments to advance land administration and tenure reforms in our country. As we undertake this work, we must rethink the developmental dichotomy that perceives and circumscribes communal land for only human settlements and labor reserves, while urban areas and small towns are seen as the sites of industrial development and job creation. Instead, communal land administration and tenure must be geared to position strategic communal land for targeted industrial development in key sectors of comparative advantage. Within the framework of the district development model, infrastructure to support key sectors, value chains must be developed to concentrate value creation and employment opportunities in close proximity to where people live. Given the predictability of communal land administration and tenure, there is no doubt that traditional communities could develop into thriving sites of targeted industrial development and beneficiations of available natural endowments. With proper governance systems and processes, the people in communal areas stand to benefit and improve their lives through the productive utilization of their land. Program Director, essentially, effective development and utilization of communal land must be guided by long-term spatial development perspectives depending on comparative advantage of each area. Economic development corridors and designated human settlement areas must be based on the spatial development priorities that contributes to the long-term development trajectory of a given district or a given local municipality. Spatial and land use planning also guides infrastructure investment to support economic mobility and access to basic services and social amenities. The current approach in the development and growth of settlements in communal land is untenable and unsustainable. The ad hoc allocation of land and development without services makes the provision of basic services difficult, and in some instances do not factor in the challenges that may be posed by global warming and climate change resulting into natural disasters. This problem could be easily resolved through the closer collaboration between municipalities and our traditional leaders. Traditional leaders can make a significant contribution towards promoting responsible land use planning and development, drawing from indigenous knowledge systems that have, from time immemorial, guided the development of our traditional communities. We are aware that traditional leaders have raised their concerns about the implementation of the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act. Traditional leaders felt that they were not consulted for input, yet spatial planning happens in their areas of jurisdiction. There are best practices which they would like government to consider so that they have an effective role to play in the development of their areas. This summit has to find a workable solution and an approach to the institutionalization and implementation of SPLUMA so that we ensure that traditional leaders also play an effective role in the spatial development planning affecting communal land. Program Director, like we have mentioned earlier, this summit have a singular focus on tackling complex issues of communal land, administration and tenure. As government, we have taken a position that the state divests itself of ownership of this land and transfer it to its rightful owners. Questions that the summit must deliberate extensively on is how communal land should be administered and what different form of tenure will be appropriate and consistent with the customary norms and practices of these different communities. Our approach as government has been that some preparatory work needed to be done before this summit could be convened. That is why in the build-up to this summit, we had to undertake study tours, we had to undertake research to benchmark our approach with other countries. On the basis of the study tours and desktop analysis reports, a draft position on land administration and tenure reform in communal areas was developed, followed by a nationwide consultation processes with relevant stakeholders. We must thank all deputy ministers who undertook this consultation process, though very strenuous, but they were able to complete it. To our deputy ministers, thank you very much. Deputy Minister Squasha, Deputy Minister Bapela, John Jeffries, and all of you, thank you very much. These consultations were held with the National House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders, as well as the various provincial houses of traditional and Khoisan leaders, the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, the National Khoisan Council, traditional communities, academia, and civil society. The purpose of this consultation was to ensure that traditional leaders contribute to coming up with an appropriate policy framework to address issues of land administration and land tenure in communal areas. We believe that insights gleaned from the research, the study tours, and stakeholder consultation can be brought to bear on this summit's deliberation and can indeed help to enrich discussions and proposals. We say all these things conscious of the fact that the issues that require our attention in this summit are quite complex and at times emotive as well. However, we are equally confident that through putting our heads together, we'll find common ground on what will ultimately be the best interests of our communities. It is expected that the summit will emerge with recommendations on national policy and legislative framework for land administration and tenure reform in communal areas, with a long-term goal of advancing socio-economic development in our rural areas. In addressing land matters, we cannot forget about the Khoisan people, who were also dispossessed of land in their earlier centuries. It was encouraging to hear that they were also consulted and will be allowed to make contribution in this summit on how government should address issues of Khoisan communities. There is no doubt that there is more that we need to deliberate on even beyond this summit, including the important matter of socio-economic development of traditional communities. That is why on the 2nd of February 2022, the President established the Inter-Ministerial Task Team on Traditional Leadership. As the task team, we have already had a dialogue with traditional leadership. We have established work streams to focus on specific issues of concern. We are pleased with the progress made by the work streams in resolving some of the outstanding issues that were raised by traditional leaders. The speed with which we have dealt with matters of concerns around communal land tenure may have taken longer than we all would have anticipated. This is as a result of the realities of our history and the nature of our governance architecture. As government, will not tire in pushing ahead with addressing issues of land reform and agrarian reform. We are committed to ensuring that the outcomes of this summit assist us in addressing the issues of communal land administration and land tenure in our rural communities. We wish this summit very well. In the deliberation that are going to happen in this summit, we are waiting for the outcomes of this summit. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, that was Deputy President David Mabuza speaking at the Communal Land Administration and Tenure Summit, which is taking place today and tomorrow, talking about the importance of development in those areas, even talking about industrialization on communal land and the importance of spatial planning such that communities are able to travel more easily to economic opportunities, and a whole lot more, saying that the conclusions of that summit will help to inform government policy about the way forward. And so we continue. Russia says it